Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? It is Friday, August 23rd, 2024. And as usual, we have our financial whisperer, Mr. Bryce Wade of New World Precious Metals, in the house to join us to talk about some
and my
of
cat
the.
Kramer.
And Kramer. That's Kramer the sidekick. Yeah, talk about some of what's going on in clown world. It's been a crazy week, as usual. I think everybody out there kind of recognizes the insanity is picking up. This week we've had some seriously explosive shows. The whatever you want to call it, far left, the cabal, the deep state, the swamp, whatever you want to call it. I think they're running scared kind of all over the planet right now, and things are getting a little bit crazy. What do you think, Bryce?
Yeah, well, I don't know about running scared yet. They're definitely scared about some stuff, but the only thing that they really fear is us little people, nobodies getting organized and telling them to get bent and kick bricks into the sun. And that hasn't happened yet. So as much as I want that to be true, and as much chaos as there is, I don't think they're actually scared of us just yet because, well, England is basically under control, and the U.S. isn't far behind, and we're kind of on the same path. So, I mean, the West is on a decline that can only be reversed by us all telling these idiots to get bent and get out.
Well, I know you're a busy guy, so you probably don't get a chance to spend 8 hours a week watching this show. But I've been talking to people internationally a lot this week.
Mhm.
Jim Ferguson and Michael Yon, some people in France, Ireland, all over the place. And I think that we're getting far more informed collectively and engaged in meaningful discourse and action on a global scale. I mean, from the parts that we can reach, and i.e. the West,
Yeah.
the typical the nations that are experiencing all the same insanity, just at varying degrees.
Yeah.
Ireland is on fire right now. The UK, and
Canada.
Canada. I think we're kind of entering the season of I told you so, where people are starting to reach out to their formerly discarded conspiracy analyst friends and say what's going on. And so I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm getting messages from people saying, damn, I disagreed with you, but now I realize it's only because I was, late on the intel. And we're getting people that are speaking more clearly. Something that Michael Yon said the other day, that words are the atomic structure of our bombs right now, and he's 100% right. It's the that however we assemble the words that we're using right now is we're going to live or die by those little atoms and molecules. And it's been very interesting seeing the people of influence that are genuinely looking for truth and solution versus the people that are just in the space for whatever reason. I'm seeing a lot more coalescence between a lot of that. So I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic. Things keep coming out of left field, per se. And by that I mean within 3 or 4 days. Big one happening today that a week ago or 2 weeks ago I would have thought kind of still unlikely, but with RFK joining, RFK joining, see. Unplugging his campaign and endorsing Trump.
That was big.
That is really huge, really huge.
Huge. It was huge.
It was huge. 100%. And that's got me optimistically thinking, wouldn't it be like the coolest thing ever for RFK to be the head of the CIA and have access to everything? I mean, not saying that he isn't a little bit questionable sometimes too, but I think that might be a bull in a china shop I would like to see happen.
Totally. Yeah, and I think RFK would be a fantastic addition to the cabinet in a couple different areas. Like he could go AG because he's a lawyer. He could go into FDA and kind of clean out that whole mess. He could go into the CIA because of his, because of who he is. Although he doesn't have actual intel experience, maybe he does, but kind of under the wraps. But I very much doubt it that he does. But I think the important thing is that what's essentially happened, right? And I actually have a really good meme for this. I'll find it and post it in a sec here. But essentially, what's happened is that, and I speak as somebody that actually experienced this, is that the far left basically destroyed the left as it was, right? For a long, long time, the left was free speech, anti-government, anti-bullshit, anti-corporate, blah, 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 blah. And now they're all pro all of that. So, the deep state had total control of the right because they were all big business, right? And they were all, the super far right, very religious people that, whatever, right? That was who they controlled, right? And they discarded them because they're like, hey, you guys aren't useful anymore, so we'll take the other side down. And so they built up the far left to be these absolute nut jobs that just scream and about everything, right? And they pushed everybody in the center to the right. So like I am literally a conservative now, even though I am a centrist, because the left is insane. I don't want to be associated with you lunatics. No, there's no way. Like you're gonna be like, hey, men can get pregnant and I can't even tell what a woman is. Like, no, man. Like, no.
Yeah, it went way too far. Most of my life, if I ever argued with anybody about politics, it would have been my parents who were, conservative, because I would have considered myself central or even maybe a shade left of where they are. But where they went over the last 5 years, 8 years under Trudeau, was so far left it could only be described as insane. And they left us. We didn't, leave them. And so that's where I kind of realized, that insanity was unsustainable. And a few months ago, the early signs were there. The season of the sacrificial political lamb had begun. So they're eating themselves, but there's a big part of that that's happening on the quote unquote right side of the fence as well. There's a lot of people eating each other up over the things that make absolutely no damn difference in the grand scheme of the war. People are getting eaten up about on our own side of the fence. To an extent, I kind of some of it's necessary. It's part of the evolution that I knew we needed to go through, and we have to clean up our own messes, but we have to not lose, not become tribal. That's the thing about it. We can't invest ourselves in somebody else's emotional irresponsibility. That's what we have to get better at. Yeah.
Well, and I think this is one of the things, to your point earlier about people waking up and getting wise to the game, that they have literally forced all of this stupid nonsense from the other side of the planet down our throat and say, hey, you've all got to care about Palestine now. Everybody has to care about Israel. Everybody has to care about this and that, and all this stupid bullshit from the other side of the planet. I'm like, bro, none of this is important to me. None of it. I don't care about any of this.
It's not our fight. It's not our problem. And if those places were left to look after their own problems, they wouldn't be able to play and capitalize by making them our problem. So no, it's time for a lot of these people to go home. It's time for our countries to stop funding the insanity in their countries. Go back there, let them fix it the way they want it, and stop trying to force us to have it here. And I am getting incredibly nervous about the pressure that I'm seeing, and now the political Islam coming out and their front organizations screaming victim because we're starting to have a problem with the the invaders. I was listening to Michael Yon. I can't get him out of my brain over the last week. He was on my show on Wednesday. He dropped some hard truths, but when you're a Green Beret and a Special Forces operator, and that you're in the combat zone, you don't dance around the bush, right? Yeah. And he calls them as he sees them. and he said some things, that we needs to get better at. And it's, again, embracing the right language. We are being invaded.
We are.
They're not migrants. They're not immigrants. They are invaders. They are invaders simply by definition because they are coming here to eat and consume our nation. They need sustenance and survival. Yep, absolutely. But not here. And it's time for them to go home. And it has absolutely nothing to do with race or racism. It has to do with ideologies that over 2,000 years or 1,000 years have proven 100% incompatible. And we are going to be so seriously outnumbered. And the system that is gamed is going to choose to align with the strongest mafia in the country. And that's soon going to be political radical Islam. So this shit's got to stop. We got to start calling them for what they are. And
who's
we
responsible
can't save
for
them
it?
all. Hey?
And who's responsible for it?
Yes. And that's the other point that, we're far too soft on. The people that are have already sold out to the highest bidders in the crime syndicate. And this is really where we're at here on a global scale. All of the oligarchically controlled mafias and syndicates are juxtaposing and rewriting their new borders, boundaries, rules of engagement, rules of commerce, and they're building a new club, and we ain't in it. They are only here to take what we've got, and unless we're willing to be slaves, we shall perish in defiance. This is where we are literally at. Our governments have been either infiltrated or captured, blackmailed, whatever the means is, bought off, and they no longer serve us in any capacity within this system. The system has to stop. These people have to be held accountable, and it's going to have to be us, we the people, that do this. And I'm so excited. And we talked about this last night, Bryce. I don't know if you followed Jason Levine.
Sounds familiar, but I don't follow him actively.
Well, twice in the last week, I've come across, and we talked about it last night, people that are starting to understand what constitutional conventions really are. What is a de jure government? And folks, we didn't got it. No. And this is, it comes down to, this is one of those things that's really starting to make me chuckle. People will say in the same sentence, we cannot vote our way out of this, but we need to vote for this guy.
I know it's a tough one because I'm of the opinion that we cannot cede the political sphere to the people that want to destroy us. I think you have to be, as a citizen, your civic duty is to be a part of the process to ensure that the freedoms that we were born into are protected and that we die with and our descendants continue to have. But I do agree that a broken system produces broken results. But I just can't get over the idea that if we cede that territory, we lose it completely. So
we it's not about ceding that; it's about claiming what's rightfully ours. And
totally.
This is the biggest crime in Canadian history. And an associate of mine was the first one to educate me on this. The biggest crime against Canadians is not any one of these political scandals that we've been dealing with in whatever the last consecutive concurrent regimes have implemented on us. That still isn't even combined all of the biggest crimes that have been committed against Canadians. The biggest crime committed against Canadians is not allowing the people to understand our actual stature and status and jurisdiction in this country and decide whether we wanted to be a constitutional monarch, whether we wanted monarchy, whether we wanted to be a republic, whether, that went into limbo, got put on the shelf, and has collected 93 years of dust. And so lately we're seeing people that are, talking about, well, isn't it time to separate ourselves from the monarchy? That's been done. That's already been done. But we didn't fulfill the second part of the pay of the deal. It's like getting a paycheck and putting it on the shelf for 89 or 90 years and not cashing it, right? This is the exact equivalent. And as people are starting to realize, the only solution to this is not these political grifters, because every one of them is campaigning for their spot at the trough of a game that they know is rigged. And once they're in, they're sworn to play that game. So I started a little while ago challenging this out there to question every single person that wants to be in office coming up. One simple question: will you champion constitutional conventions to seat a de jure Canada? Because the crime, the debt of the criminals, the instant that process is enacted, and there's a process. It's not like it's instant anarchy or anything like that. Once that process begins, and this is the blackmail that Quebec has used against the governments for decades and decades and decades, is they know this. It's the rest of the country that doesn't, right? But there are people that are starting to address this, and that debt of the criminals, the de facto criminals, all of the politicians, and so far, they bear the burden of that debt. So Canadians would literally, as citizens, be debt free and be able to establish an entirely new system in commerce. So that is the crime against Canadians, is never have, they say we don't have a say. You're right. We don't have a say. And in the current system, it's not, that isn't going to change, because they're still sworn to, they're playing football. They're not allowed to come in there and play soccer. We want them to play soccer, right? So this is the thing that we're if we continue to feed that, that's what gives them their rule by consent. We tell them that we want them to do.
And this is kind, and I think this kind of neatly goes into my point of the more people that understand this should be in there in the process, getting in there and saying like, hey, if you want my vote, this is what you got to do. Yep,
exactly. And that's what I was posing to people. Ask your politician: are they going to are they going to champion seating a de jure Canada?
That you have to know that well enough and understand it well enough to explain it to somebody else simply, though.
That's on us.
Yeah, I know. That's the civic duty part, right? You have to know. You have to have an understanding of your responsibility as a citizen. And most people, I click a like button and that's good enough. Well, it's not, right? We're in the situation we are now because we don't have enough people taking our civic duty and being a part of the system as much as possible, right? And yep.
So this is the opportunity for us now. For anybody that even remotely says there's no political, that we can't vote our way out of this. It's the only solution is to unseat them without going to revolution and revolt. This is the way we should have been doing it in the first place. But this is the opportunity.
That sounds like a renaissance, my friend.
Right? Exactly. So this is why I'm so excited about it. And we covered this right at the tail end of the show last night on that. Exactly that. That is the path forward. And, people say, well, how do we do that? Well, I've said often, we need to pull an Iceland. Well, it's more than just that. Barbados just recently did it, right? And and what people think it makes it so tough, they don't realize it's exactly the same process as America did when they seeded their constitutional republic.
Yeah.
Right? So we just have to do that. That's all we have to do is collectively decide, and we can at that point. What happens in Canada happens on our discussion. Everything that they're doing goes instantly on pause, right? And so this needs to be the dividing line. We instead of voting for the lesser of two evils and getting all evil regardless, because you are voting, and we're continuing to vote. We need to find the people that are going to amongst there. And it's not that everybody is that's in politics is evil or bad. I'm not saying that, but they're part of an evil system, and it's up to us to stop that. So that's been the biggest crime against Canadians in the history of our country.
I agree. Could you bring up Focus 20,003 comment, because I think it's relevant to this, and then we'll get into the economic stuff in a sec, because I think this point is a good example of the
which comment.
Most recent Focus 20,003.
How many people are consenting now?
No, the most recent one. It's 420. Yeah, that one. So my MP is a dual citizen with Lebanon. He's a conservative. I won't be voting for him, so it's pointless to tell him anything. So I used to agree with this, but I don't anymore, and here's why. It doesn't necessarily matter if the person that you're saying something to doesn't get it. It's everybody around them that hears you that's important, right? I argue with absolute morons every day on Twitter. Every single day. I spout enormous amounts of stuff on Twitter, because I know that like every time that Arif Viraji, whatever that idiot's name is, posts anything, I'm like, you're pushing C63, screw you. Every single time I see his name, I post that, because I want everybody that sees him to for that idea to be connected to him. And so the point that I'm making with that comment is that although I agree with you to a degree, it might be pointless to say it to him. It's not pointless to have the idea get out there, because at the end of the day, politics is an arena of ideas and representation of people. You are representing an idea for a purpose and an agenda to achieve a goal, right? And the more people that know about that idea that don't know about it before you say anything is a change. Like, say what you want about the conservative parties, they now have a bill that bans CBDCs. The only reason that they do at all, I'm not going to say it's entirely my fault, but I was the first person to stand up and say, this is bullshit. What's your stance on it? They gave me some bullshit answer, but they noticed, because everybody else around me cheered for that. When I was talking to Melissa Landsman, they were like, oh shit, this is something that's important to people, and people knew about it, right? But they didn't say anything about it. They didn't want to talk about it at all. But because so many people were like, yo, this is bullshit.
Exactly.
You got to do something about it. They listened because they had to. So to say that there's nothing that can be done is a black pill bullshit answer that I don't ever want to hear, because it's wrong. You and everybody else, me included, have the ability to speak for now, but we are losing that. And if you don't use that, we're going to lose it, right? So if you believe in something so strong that this is bullshit, well, you got to put it out there. You got to say that, hey, this is bullshit. I don't know when you can say it. I don't know where you can say it, but you can't stay silent about it, because silence is compliance. So don't be silent. Don't be compliant. Speak up, because we're about to lose that ability completely.
Yeah, there's several points in there. I 100% agree with you on that. And it can be something as simple as, and this is why I articulated exactly that specific sentence, because I ask every politician online, any opportunity that I have, are you willing to champion seating a de jure Canada, to host constitutional conventions on the will of the people? And what that's done has eliminated, instead of going out there and hammering them with something that they've done wrong, I provide them an opportunity to do right. And by doing that, it becomes a learning opportunity, because if I go out there and I hit them with something, doesn't matter whether it's a PPC or a conservative or a liberal, the other side sees that as an opportunity to jump on the coattails of the punch that I threw, right? And so I don't give them that, because if they have to ask their own political party members, will you help us seat to de jure Canada or not, they're going to get a rude slap in the face. And so I do this to Max, I do it to Pierre, I do it to any and all of them. Will you help us have constitutional conventions and seat a de jure Canada? And now I'm seeing other people of influence asking and doing the same thing. Why? Because it's non-insulting.
Yeah.
And cuts right to the core of the problem. But here's why it forces them to decide which part of history they're going to be on, because if they say no, then they are a part of the crime spree and continue to be. And if they say yes, then they are cutting their own throat in their own. They're going against the syndicate. They're going against the mob at that point. So they're trapped.
And this is, I think, a good strategy in a couple different ways, because you have to force people to pick a side. Hey, do you believe in carbon taxes or not? Do you want us to have more carbon taxes or not? You've got to pick a side. There's no gray area. You either support that nonsense or you don't. Can men get pregnant? Yes or no? You either support that nonsense or you don't, right? And it's these big lists of things that are like, there's the culture war, there's taxes, there's the economy, there's politics, there's constitutional freedoms, there's freedom itself, there's the jab, there's all of these different things, right? How do we know what a politician supports or does not support? There's no like list, there's no map of all of these people that says this person supports this and doesn't support this, blah blah blah. You got to do work to actually figure this out. So if there was a way, I think, for people to be like, hey, this is, I talked to my MP or whatever, I asked them this question, this was their response, that could be collated and essentially mapped for the 338 or whatever it is. I think that would be a powerful way to hold people accountable. You said this, if you support this or you vote for this, you're fired instantly. And this is why, this is kind of one of my big core things that I truly believe very strongly. There has to be a mechanism of accountability when politicians step over the line. The whole way that we vote, which is what a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of here disagree with, is that it's only a vote for. It's only a vote of support, right? There's no vote against. I want to be able to vote this idiot out. I don't want this idiot in Parliament anymore. Where do I get this vote against that these people have stepped beyond their authority and beyond their constitutional ability multiple times? Easy to show that. How are we, the people, going to make sure that the person that is supposed to represent us does represent us? And if we don't have a mechanism to remove them when they don't, that's impossible.
Well, and within the system that they engage in, and we allow them to rule because we imply consent in, that's never going to change, regardless of whatever individual comes into office with the best of intentions. They are captured and trapped with the system that is inherently stacked up against us. It's the only way the system functions. So the only peaceful means out of this is to get the job done that got shelved because of a Great Depression and a war. And this is why to see other faces that are out there leading the charge of education and information, I think even people like Yukon Strong are starting to understand this. They're starting to understand what it meant when Trudeau said, people are asking, why does Quebec get these favors? Oh, it's the Quebec problem. What he wasn't saying was it's because they threatened to separate, what we call separation, but they decided, they hold this de jure thing and say, whenever you stop giving us the booty of your proceeds of crime against the rest of the other 9 provinces and territories, if you don't keep giving us the amount of booty that we want, then we're going to just take our sovereignty and really will end the syndicate. At that point, that's the kill switch, the self-sabotage of the entire crime syndicate. So they wrap that up, and Trudeau says, oh, it's just the Quebec problem, nothing to see here, folks. But that is no longer under wraps, and we're starting to people are starting to have educated discussions about that. And I think that this is absolutely critical, because this is what I've been warning for a couple of months. Whether we like it or not, we're going to go into an election. We're going to have to play the charade game at this point to an extent. But this is the opportunity for every single one of these people to tell us, in no uncertain terms, which side of history are they going to be on? Are they going to continue to serve unelected foreign entities and the pirate of the crime syndicate? And they're going to have to tell us with their own faces, because we now know the truth of the decision that they make, and they can no longer dodge it at that point, right?
Yeah.
And these 100%. Become the people that sit in the docket when the job gets done.
Yeah. And the chat's bringing up a couple good points about dual citizenship too. I don't know how it's even possible that we can have elected politicians in our country that were born in another country. How is that even possible? I don't how is that not in the Constitution, that you have to be born in the country to represent the country? It blows my mind that you can have somebody from China that grew up in a communist dictatorship that wants to destroy and take over the world that can come here and be part of our government. That is insane.
We have at least 2 people in our parliament that have done time in foreign prisons for acts of terrorism that are have been are getting salaries from us in the Canadian Parliament and are doing the bidding of this henchman. And that's brings me up on one other point that I wanted to make there about that knuckle dragger that's championing Bill C-63. Did you know that he got his corporate start in his placement for his work done in the anti-hate network as one of the board members there, right?
Arif, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely despise that guy. That guy, I can't say enough bad things about that guy and what he's doing to Canada. Literally everything that's happening in England right now is because they implemented hate speech laws that he is pushing with C-63.
I've had this thought spinning in my brain all afternoon while I was doing everything that I'm doing. And this week has been really crazy for me with some really high profile interviews, both here and abroad. And something struck me, and I couldn't really articulate it. And I think it's something that we desperately need to understand: is we are captives by of individuals through infiltration or capture of our government, and we owe no allegiance to our captors.
Mm-hmm.
We are being treated like prisoners of conquest, prisoners of war, slaves, all of these things by people that have no righteous designation. They're fraudists, and we don't owe any allegiance to our captors. So you picture yourselves in a prisoner of war camp. Well, this is where we are. We are in a soft prisoner of war camp right now, and the people that control our government, we owe them no allegiance. This is not a call for violence by any stretch of the imagination. No, this is taking back what is ours. We have to remove the coup. And that part there, we don't owe them any allegiance. They don't represent us. So it's time to get real and start calling things like invasion. This screaming cry for Islamophobia is such an insult to any intelligence. There is no such thing as an unreasonable or unrealistic fear of Islam when they have been responsible for more than 680 million deaths throughout their ideologically short history compared to anything else. There is no such thing as an unrealistic fear of them. So anybody that we need to end this Islamophobia discussion, this push for censorship, because this is exactly what the animals that are driving this, the swamp creatures, are hiding behind that thin veil of Canadian good behavior, that we have this misplaced sense of allegiance to these swamp creatures, and we will comply and do because they want to run around and hide behind the curtains. They're putting in more curtains. They're on the streets calling for jihad right now in Palestine, in Montreal, in Ottawa,
all over
the terrorist threats all over the country, and not just against mosques, but museums and history and places.
They've already broken down our statues. There was a big bomb threat this week. There's all of this nonsense never happened previous to this bullshit. So I can do math pretty easily, and it has nothing to do with Islamophobia. I really hate and despise that word. But and I've said this before, but I'm an atheist. Okay, like, totally cool if everybody believes in God. I don't have anything against that's fine, right? But I'm an atheist, and there's 19 countries on this planet where I would be killed for being an atheist. Guess where all of those are?
So when I had Michael Yon on, we talked about this. Now he is probably one of the most experienced war photographers still in action right now. Special Forces, Green Beret, Afghanistan, Iraq. He did it all and everything since. And when I described to him, now he was in Canada just a few months ago, and the first thing he said to me, I was just there. That place is a mess. And I was describing
where, Iraq.
He's been to Iraq and Afghanistan. He toured there. But he was just in Canada a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, the first thing he said to me was that, I was just up there a few months ago, and that place is a mess. And I told him, I asked him about, we talked about this these rallies and protests in Montreal and Toronto and Ottawa, and I asked him from his war combat experience, what's next, and he said the slaughter. That's really where he's not saying that that's starting tomorrow, but on their agenda, and this is where it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or not, they will take our heads off and kick it down the street like a soccer ball regardless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's yeah. 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 So
it's been a high testosterone, a high adrenaline week. I'll just say that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So let's get into the kind of the economics of what happened this week, because there's quite a bit.
Sure.
So I've shared my screen for a sec. So silver had quite the week. So we started at about 26, which was quite the departure from what it was, because we were up at about like 28, 29. And now we're back up to 27. And in the same time that this happened, and this is why I'm going to do this math for everybody every week to show what the difference is. So gold is hitting new highs. We are now at 25.50, bro. We were at 18.50 in November. So I just want everybody to understand this for a second, okay? Gold usually doesn't move more than a couple percentage points a year. We're up almost 40% in a year. That is, it's not historic yet, but I'm sure it will be eventually. The way the trajectory of the economy is going is, if humanity survives to ever be, beyond our borders of our planet, what's happening right now is going to be in the history books of one of the craziest times in all of human history from an economic perspective, for a variety of reasons, right? But one of the big ones is that the massive amounts of debt and the massive amounts of instability in the markets that we measure a lot of different things from, the stuff that's happening right now is just off the charts, right? Remember a couple weeks ago when we had that big dip of 1,000 points in the Dow Jones, right? Remember that?
Yep.
I'm going to show it to you. That was that 40
right.
to 8 to 38, 1,000, basically a 1,000 point drop. We're now back to $41,000 to 41,000 points. Why? Why would this be going up? This is disconnected from reality, is why it's happening. It's not a representation of the economy anymore. This is manipulation to its highest degree, right? And what that means, right, in real terms for us, you and me, right, is that they have a plan that they're implementing, and it doesn't include us, right? So a lot of, I'm not a financial advisor, but I can do math and I read history, so I've seen this happen before in other times throughout history, right? And when you get to a point in an empire where everything is at its peak and it's just before the decline, well, what happens just before the decline? All the rich people start selling. They sell at the top of the market, right, to get all of their assets out of the stuff that's nonsense and put it into real stuff. So I had a lot of conversations with clients this week about, hey, I'm really worried about this. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the banks. That's why they're calling us. And that's why we're talking, really, is because they want to protect their assets, right? When I talk to, let's make this one point. When I talk to people, I listen for two things. Do you want to protect something, or do you want to make money on what you already have, right? And so there's opportunities with gold and silver in each one of those. But the big thing, the big selling point is protection of the wealth that you already have. And wise to the game. Well, when you look at your internal financial situation, you have to take a really significant look at that. What's my exposure to the market that could drop 80%, 50%, 20%, 30%? Is my life savings, is my retirement connected to that? Because if it is, that's a major risk. It took almost 30 years after the Depression to get back to where it fell from. So it was an 80% decline, and it had to go up 400% or something to get back to where it was, whatever that I can't remember the number. But that took 30 years after the Depression, right? And that was 20 years, because it was to the 50s.
So,
Yeah,
but
it's
when we hit that dip, I remember talking about that, and I was asking you, we were seeing some people that were, kind of dumping some stuff, and it looked like it could have been what we've all been, inevitably waiting for, because the insanity is unsustainable. It has to collapse sooner or later. And I remember asking you, what are the chances that they're just propping this up so they don't all lose their shirts and get it back to where they can actually dump all of their stuff, and fleece us again or even more, when they can control when the collapse happens. And I think that it's kind of what I'm seeing here is that we can expect that crash again, and this time we're going to have to be paying attention to those guys that are dumping their stuff everywhere as soon as they're doing that, because that's going to kind of be the red flag that they're, because I agree that we're not in this. This is not reflective of reality, whether it's AI manipulation or I would more expect it to be the IMF and the bankers manipulation, so that they can again extract as much out of this. They'll dump it all, and we'll be stuck holding the bag. And I think that is, so there's so many things that are tied into that, and to me, the election is the hinge pin of this. So much of this stuff is being propped. Just hang on to the election. Hang on to the election. The war in Ukraine. Hang on till the election. I think this is kind of the same thing. And they'll let it. And I think I asked you about this then too. They'll collapse it the minute that the week before Trump gets voted into office, when they finally accept that they can't even steal enough to make a plausible victory for Kamala la 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 la.
Kamala Lala Ding Dong, the Kamala. What is it? The Kamala Nomenon.
It's just Kamala Carl Harris.
Yeah, the Kamala.
Yeah, Kamala. That's she is absolutely a communist disciple. Her dad was
Totally.
a communist fanatic. Wrote books on it.
Yep.
She was raised up communist. So anybody that expects any different. So
Yeah, her first policy, the first policy they talked about were like communist rent controls, woo! Or sorry, price controls, yeah, communism, and everybody's like, "Are you serious?" Like, so I've been watching. I haven't been watching the DNC. I'm catching the clips, and I don't know if you saw Matt Walsh's photo bomb that he did. Oh, it's hilarious because he's got this new movie out, and so he basically did this thing to pump up his movie. It's really funny, actually. It's hilarious. But all of the people there that they talk to have no idea, other than it's a woman and a black female, why they're voting for this person, other than I hate Trump. Like, these people are so brain dead that, like, say what you want about Trump. There's lots of stuff you can criticize him for, but policy is not really one of them, because he has a track record of doing good policy. Not all of it. You can still criticize him for it, right? But very clear things that were good for the West, right? So you can't take that against from him. And every single thing that the Democrats have done, and the far left in general, across all of the West, have all been uniform of their support for open borders, bullshit communist policies, and the destruction of the economy, right? All of them, everywhere. They've all said the same stupid shit.
The only our entire national and foreign policy in the West is to export woke, and the rest of the world is done with it.
We're done with it. I know.
Right? I mean, but this is where it matters in the markets, though. Is this is why we're seeing this shift. People were willing to play the games of stupidity from other nations, so long as they got what they needed out of America and the West. And they're seeing a cataclysmic shift. They're not buying into another term of Kamala. We're seeing a hard turn away from America with the BRICS nations, four new BRICS agenda. The whole thing is coming apart at the seams, and when they look over here and they see Kamala somehow
Just
manufacturing a
cackling
coup.
away of like,
She never got a vote, but yet is the candidate,
these
of
people, yeah,
choice,
it's a
right?
literal
So
coup.
a literal coup, literally a coup.
Yeah,
Um, and they see Trump aligning with now RFK. If you give him the CIA, see what happens. Elon Musk, you give him a whole department of efficiency.
buddy.
Holy crap! The rest of the world is going. Yeah, no, 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 no. We're out of here. We're gonna go
Well,
and do
well,
do business elsewhere.
and I think that's a big thing that everybody is waiting for is to see if, because like you got to understand, right? So the whole
And just to
idea,
finish my point,
yeah,
is
yeah,
seeing that coming,
yeah.
they're going to prop this up, dump all of their shit, get rich quick, and crash the market and leave Musk and Trump and RFK with a total global financial collapse.
Yeah. I agree, but I think that they being the world that is unaligned because there's still a lot of people that are on the fence. Is the West? Do I go east or west? Right, and it's the Eastern authoritarians against the Western oligarchy. Right, the whole idea and the only reason that America is what it is because people all over the world believe that if I go to America, it doesn't matter who I am, what I believe, where I'm from. That if I work hard, I have the American dream and I can succeed. Right, and I can have free speech and the ability to do what I want to do. And there's a law that protects me, and we have a constitution, all this good jazz, right? If that ever fails, right, there's nowhere else on the planet that is going to take up that mantle of protecting rights and shit. That's just not going to happen. It's not. There's nowhere else on the planet that you have more of a protection of your rights. So we were talking about the constitutional thing earlier. The Constitution is a limit on what the government can do, right? They create laws that limit what you can do, right? And if we don't have a strong constitution that protects us against our government, the government takes over and they take complete control, and they exterminate the people that are their enemies. And that's what literally is happening right now. We are in that war for survival right now, right? And so the point that I'm making, or the point that I'm trying to get to, is that when the choice is made, left or right, for Kamala or Trump or whatever, the world is going to look at that, myself included, and probably many others, and say, if Kamala wins, the U.S. is over. It's done.
Yep.
You've
100%.
lost. The system failed. There is no way to save it. It's done. It's over. It's gone. If
Yep.
Trump wins, there's potentially a possibility for it to be saved. And it's only a possibility because the entrenched people, just like here in Canada, the people that have been entrenched in all of these positions of power, trying to do whatever agenda bullshit they're trying to do, has been there for so long that if you don't either completely burn them out, like just burn out the cancer, it collapses, right? And we're all looking for this. Is this going to happen? Because if Trump does win, there's the possibility that we can save the West. But if he doesn't, we're fucked.
And this is where we have to decide, and it's nothing to do with left or right. It's nothing to do with party. It's literally us versus them. And if all of this comes to pass, the only path to accountability, literally, is through the constitutional conventions. We need to make them, that odious debt needs to go with them. If the world collapses and these swamp creatures ghost with all of our resources and leave us with a crushed economy, we're going to be on the hook for all of this debt and collapse, of the manufactured by these captured and infiltrated governments. So this is literally the only safe and real and free path to solving so much of the suffering in Canada and elsewhere. Where Canada goes, the rest will follow. Why is it that a country like Barbados and Iceland can get it done and we can't? It's simply because we're uneducated or unconnected. And that's really where we're at here now, and this is where we have a short period of time to at least get people educated, or we're going to be on the hook for a lot of this crime spree.
Yeah, exactly. And the other So I've been saying this a lot this week too, is that because I have a meme for this as well, so I post a lot of memes, right? And that's like basically they're hiding.
You got that one for me.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I expanded on it, actually. So
I saw that.
DEI. Yeah, so DEI is basically the cover for sabotage of the West. It's literal communism. There, all of the ideas that DEI is literal communism rebranded, right? But what it is created is essentially an ineptocracy, right? So a system of government where the least capable to lead are elected by the least capable of producing, and where the members of society least likely to sustain themselves or succeed are rewarded with goods and services paid for by the confiscated wealth of the diminishing number of producers. That is what is happening all across the West, and specifically in Canada, because we're in Canada. But this is what Trudeau is. He is the head of this absolute ineptocracy, right? And I had Grok, who's an actually good AI that doesn't do dumb shit like the rest of them do, had a deeper explanation of what this is. So anybody can pause this and read that if they want to. I'll just go in a little bit further. But what we are coming to the point of is all of the systems that we've built. And I'll give you a perfect example. So put a 1 in chat if you have a vehicle that you like driving. I would if I could, but I can't today. I have a vehicle that I like driving. I don't like public transit. It's slow, it's ineffective, right? And they want 15-minute cities for us, so we can't go wherever we want, right? And what they're doing, and what the ban on ICEs, internal combustion engines, in 2025 has done, is it's starting to degrade and destroy the manufacturing supply chain of auto parts, okay? And so when you break something in your vehicle, and you're like, oh, it used to be $20. Now it's 150 because there's less of them being produced, and the company has to make more of them to keep to stay afloat, right? So what's happening with our supply chains and what we're producing and why we're producing it and how we're producing it is they're degrading the systems and the infrastructure that is keeping civilization managed and working. And more importantly than that, they're degrading the people that are responsible for maintaining those systems, right? And once we get to essentially a critical, what do you call that point? Critical mass, critical point, critical juncture,
Critical
whatever.
mass.
Critical mass, yeah, it's good enough. When we get to a critical mass, that the people that have all of this knowledge now can't maintain it because there's not enough people to replace them. All of those systems break, and they break permanently. So we're slowly being moved to the point that will happen, and it's not far away. So we have this invasion that's happening, which is up here, right? Oh, this is the meme I was talking about earlier. Yeah, I'll move that over there. So anyway, so we're moving to the point soon where this is starting to happen. It's already starting to happen in healthcare. Like, we can't get healthcare and stuff, but it's starting to happen in other systems too. Like, they're like doing DEI for like pilots. Like, who gives a shit what your skin color is? You're flying a plane. You better be the best person for the job, or you shouldn't be there. Like, what are we even talking about? These people are so dumb on the left that you can even make the argument that we should hire on skin color, which is racist and illegal, rather than the merit of what you're doing for the job. Like, I can't anymore. These people are just too stupid, so I just insult them relentlessly now. But the ultimate, let me make this final point, because I'm long-winded enough. If we don't stop this, shit's going to break to a point where it's irreparable, right? And
Yes.
so when I talk about the civic responsibility, and you said it so perfectly, the answer to globalization is localization. You have to be a part of your community, wherever you are, whatever part of the country, whatever part of the planet you're on. You got to get together with the people that you live with in your community and start organizing, because that is not only the only thing that they fear, but the only thing that's going to keep you alive.
I just have to drop this. Because people are asking, and I saw this. I'm going to pull this up here. Esky Dogs, thank you for the comment. We're all suffering under this, 100%. Every bit of suffering every Canadian is experiencing is exactly directly connected to this. And what do we do about this mess? And I posted this here. The first thing that we need, every Canadian needs to do, is ask their elected officials this question: will you help us move to constitutional conventions and seat a de jure Canada? Why is this so important?
Can you
Because
share the that website that you were talking about so people can learn about how to do that and what that means, what that entails?
And that's exactly what I was doing next, because I typed that in here as well, so that I could bring it up on the screen, because I can't bring it up onto the screen until I type it into the Rumble chat box. So the best platform to do that, to learn about this, is themythiscanada.com. It doesn't tell you how to get organized. It will tell you the facts of what constitutional conventions are. And the other next place, I will find that and get that for you guys in one moment, is on Jason Levine. Get plugged in or get started there. It's a great place to get plugged into the start of the conversation as well, because Jason is he is hyper to an extreme, and once he gets his teeth into something, he doesn't let go. And he has started to pose the question in the correct way. And it's important to understand there's a lot of people that talk about straw man stuff, free man of the land stuff. That is not the proper conversation to have. That is not the one that we need to be having. But I'll drop the comment or that in here. And okay, it took me a moment. Thank you for bearing with me, guys. But I can share this. Okay. Jason Levine, let's talk about Constitutional Convention in Canada. Now I'll drop the chat in here. This is a place to get engaged in the conversation, not necessarily all of the education. I don't know how informed Jason is on all of this beyond starting to breach the dialogue, but this is a great place to start. Find some tribe, get figured out on how to bring this conversation into every one of our dining room tables across the country, and why this is so important to start understanding. This is the Myth is Canada is the like the library per se of how to do what Iceland did, what Barbados did. But the library only answers the question of this: how do we move to constitutional conventions to seat a de jure Canada, right? And that sets you and us financially free, and with the resources in Canada. So yeah, Jason Levine, I don't agree with everything that he says, but and there's nobody on earth that I agree with everything that they say and do. But when people are having the right conversation, put our petty shit aside or whatever it is that we may have an issue with, and get involved in the conversation, because our lives literally depend on it. And we're going to get blindsided because the people in Quebec are organizing to do exactly this, to force a constitutional convention in Quebec. And when they do that, their whole rest of this damn country is going to be left blindsided. So this is a mandatory conversation that needs to start happening yesterday this is the conversation that should have been fulfilled. This was the check. How do we cash the check now in a system that's completely different that they wrote for us in 1931? Well, this is where we start figuring out how to cash the check that they wrote us in 1931. So, not exactly where we usually go on a Friday night, but hey, critically important at
the
that time. Hey,
go with the flow, man.
But you got to go with what the people need to know, and it's about the Overton window. And this is something that I really have been putting a lot of thought into over the last little while. Taking so much of the work that I've done, honestly, Bryce, in the last 5 years has been a year or two, or in some cases even 5 years ahead of the time when people are ready for the discussion. So I find myself going back.
I mean,
The difference is you don't have a podcast where you go back on record and pull it up and say, "No, let's have this conversation again."
yeah, totally.
Right?
I've been talking about this stuff my whole life, but now like I finally have an outlet for some of this stuff. But yeah, and I feel you. but
So,
this is kind of
the
very
time.
good.
Now is the time.
Yeah.
Over the last week, we've had so much opportunity to talk about the crime syndicate of what the anti-hate network really is. Because others are starting to engage in it, and the rappers are coming off, and these terrorists in our management system are being exposed for what they are, and people are not having enough. And this is the only answer. Knowing we cannot vote our way out of this, there's only two ways: start having a civil war and killing each other, or host constitutional conventions. It's the only way to wipe the deck clean of all of them.
That's what I'm saying. Revolution or Renaissance, bro. Because I ain't doing submission. Get bent.
Right. So let's when we come back here next week, let's make it a point of sharing a moment on an engagement or interaction. And I want to challenge the people out there in the audience to embrace that question and try it, see what happens. And people will say, "What are you talking about?" And they're going to say, "Oh, it sounds like this straw man stuff." No. You can I wish I'd have got it on camera. I've asked politicians this, and they say no. We rule through implied consent. We don't need to. So even getting an answer like that on camera is admitting to being a part of the crime spree.
Yeah,
literally.
Well, at a certain point, bro, things are going to start falling apart, and people are going to have to make some pretty tough decisions. And so, the more you can prepare yourself for either the worst or try to make it to the finish line as good as you can. Every action that you take now is either a point for or a point against your survival, and that of you and your family, and you and your community. So, I agree with you at a very base level, but at the same time, we're at a war for survival here. So I don't know how bad this is going to get, but I know it's going to get bad. So I want to think, and I still believe that we can turn this around. But
we have to. It's like Michael said to us the other day. These people that think that they can run out and hide in the bush with their AR-15s and their toys and their bells and their whistles, they're not going to last 10 minutes out there against this machine. If that's the route that people choose to go, they're basically assigning a death sentence to everybody that is peacefully, becoming organized to take back what's rightfully ours. And so there's two ways to go, but you can get everybody killed by being stupid, or you can take part in the resistance. And they don't have the wherewithal. They cannot withstand a war of attrition. The more Canadians get educated and come to our side of a peaceful discussion and negotiation, no, we're done with submitting to the crime syndicate. This is the only path, the only clear path to accountability and giving them the debt of the crimes that they've committed and setting our country free. That's it. Bar none. Can be no other discussion. This is how we move to that kind of commitments to us over them, as clear as day, night and day, and start getting organized towards that in the instruction manual, how-to manual. And we just talked about that here. So I'm looking forward to some interesting feedback about some of that discussion over the coming weeks, because whether we're driving the bus or they are, I'm a shitty passenger personally, so I would rather get in control of this runaway Stasi bus myself. So this is how we do it.
Make moves, all. Got time's ticking.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, Bryce, again for the the whispering of the economy on some of the insanity that's coming. I think it's only going to
even cover that much. There's a lot that happened
this week. The next week, I think, is going to tell us a lot. I think there's going to be things that are going to become more and more evident over the coming weeks, week by week. Yeah.
Let me just make this super brief point, like really short. So, like I mentioned last week, because I actually mentioned World War III and the kind of the escalations that's happening. But the war in Lebanon looks to be escalating quite significantly, and NATO invaded Russia again since last week. So there's two fronts over there now. So I mean, the idea that this war isn't happening, it is. It is most certainly happening, and the front line is eventually going to be in your doorstep, regardless of where you are. I mean, it's pretty much already there in all but name, but it's not a kinetic war here yet. But just like your friend said, the slaughter is what comes next. They've been planning this for decades. It is implemented. So, take solace in the fact that there are people around you that don't want this bullshit for their communities either. You have to connect with them and you have to get organized. So I'll leave it there.
100%. The fox is in the hen house. Hashtag danger close. We can, get prepared collectively or succumb individually is kind of where I'm at. Not to be melodramatic, but I actually, Esky Dogs, I know it may seem like that, but I find it incredibly optimistic at this point because people are
Get wise to the game.
They're not just getting wise to the game, but they're done crying about it. They're real. A lot of people,
totally.
more and more people daily are done crying about it, and they're looking to get activated, engaged. And this is constructive engagement. When we could talk about things like constitutional conventions, bringing that discussion to your local coffee shop table, every week by week by week. Now we have multiple outlets across the country that are having relevant, real discussions. This is no longer conspiracy theory. This is addressing the problems and the solutions. And the more pressure that we can create from the inside, the more support we get from the outside. Make no mistake, guys, there's reasons why I talk to so many international outlets that allows us an opportunity to push from both sides of the political spectrum. So we've got some big announcements coming up on that in the very near future too. But make no mistake, guys, we may have a small community here, but we are mighty. So I am optimistic as heck these days. I'm kind of, a frontline action junkie, but I'll keep firing. So, all right, Bryce, thanks.
Keep it on.
Amen. Amen. We will see you next week. Same time, same place. All right, guys. These conversations never have a direction and we never know where they're going to go, but they're always inevitably incredibly interesting and informative to at least somebody. So I kind of have been using this little quip the last little while about saying hi to fellow patriots and hostages. I'm going to change that up a little bit, and I'm going to start addressing people as fellow patriots and prisoners. Why? Because I need people to understand that we owe no allegiance to our captors, and it's time to start organizing the prison break per se, and that we've just talked about. The best, safest, most effective way to do that. And when people start to understand what a constitutional convention is, they will start to realize that localism is the 100% safe and effective cure for globalism. That starts at constitutional conventions. I love you guys all. Stay mighty, my fellow patriots and prisoners. And we will see you next week, Monday, with some more fireworks. I hope you guys are enjoying the fact that we are smashing them out of the park these days. Lots going on. Get all of the extras on Substack free. Congratulations to you guys. We hit 700 subscribers on Substack with 20 people subscribing at $8 a month voluntarily, of course, because everything is always free on our platform. So very much gratitude there. And somebody bought me a couple of coffees today. So thank you so much for the coffees, Brenda. If you have a story or a whistle to blow, something that corroborates, or you want to get plugged in, need something, that is the best way to do that. Support your local journalists. They are the tip of the spear. If they are doing good, honest, authentic work, they are the most important ally you've got against the most dangerous enemy that we have is the mainstream media mercenaries. So give them a support and helping hand wherever they are, because they're probably doing this from heart, because they're probably really lousy business people. If they were good business people, they would choose to be independent, authentic journalists. So have mercy on those guys that are fighting the best fight. This is how you can help me do that the most effective way. Donate at whatsupcanada.org. Whatsupcanada.org is ground zero for everything that we do. And that's it. That's all. Happy Friday, everybody. I love you, and we will see you Monday.
In times of global instability, soaring inflation and massive debt, gold and silver have proven to be unshakable pillars of wealth. New World Precious Metals, based in Calgary, Canada, is a leading international brokerage. We offer an easy, secure and cost-effective platform for investing in gold and silver, including our international wholesale program and registered retirement savings accounts. Protect your money outside traditional banking with our physical precious metals, privately vaulted outside the banking system, at secure, insured exchanges worldwide. Gold and silver have been trusted assets for generations, with current projections indicating high returns. And with unprecedented demand from governments, banks and investors, there are now shortages. Precious metals thrive during inflation, geopolitical instability, and currency devaluation. Sound familiar? Now is the time to invest in gold and silver, whether in your international investment account or by transferring registered retirement savings accounts. Experience the security of physical precious metals, combining the safety of physical assets with the flexibility of being like your own bank, offering instant liquidity and a financed line of credit. With precious metals on the rise, don't miss this generational opportunity to protect your wealth. At New World Precious Metals, we ensure your wealth meets its potential. Contact us today and our personal brokers will guide you every step of the way.